Hello and welcome to This Is. Today's episode is more than what's on the surface.
Okay, so recently we got the chance to sit down with Yusuf Mehdi, who at Microsoft is not only a corporate vice president, but importantly, he is also the consumer chief marketing officer. Yusuf is deeply ingrained in a lot of the Microsoft stuff that you probably use every day. Surface, Windows, AI, all kind of stuff.
I use all of those things.
And so we had this unique opportunity to sit down and chat with him. And I had some very specific questions. So my friends, sit down and enjoy my chat with Yusuf, where we get to the bottom of the enclipification of Windows. I'm here with Yusuf Mehdi from Microsoft. Sadly, Matt was unable to join today due to a severe bout of food poisoning. But Yusuf, welcome to This Is.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
I have a bunch of questions, but I guess first to kind of set, if the truck blocks our whole light. Let me make sure I've got this right. So in your domain at Microsoft, you've got Surface,
Copilot.
Copilot. Oh yeah, because I guess it's its own thing now, right?
Yeah. Microsoft 365 consumer.
One of the things that I always think about when it comes to Microsoft is devices, right? I mean, whether it be Xbox or Surface or whatever. But I'd love to talk a little bit about Surface because I know that, especially on this, we've talked a lot about the Surfaces over the years. Because Surface is what, like 10, 11 years old, 12 years old? How would you describe to someone who's maybe not super familiar with Surface, kind of like, how do you look at Surface? Is it something that is like the sort of the idealized version of like a Windows device? Is it something that you do so that you can kind of set the tone for the ecosystem? Kind of like, how do you look at Surface just from a very like sort of broad perspective?
It's a little bit of everything that you said, Austin. We think about it as the best expression of what Microsoft has to offer is the Surface device, meaning that not only is it beautiful, powerful hardware, but we really want to bring to life all of the software from the Windows experience to all of the apps. And so in many ways, the role of Surface is to set that excellence bar, the innovation bar. There's a saying from one of the famous developers that says, if you want to be serious about software, you got to do your own hardware.
I would think about that a lot because the first Surface, I think it was the first Surface period, was the RT. It was like a Tegra 3 or whatever it was at the time.
Good memory.
I had bought one and I remember I did a video and one of my favorite things was it had like one USB-A port or whatever. I remember I like plugged like a million of dongles in to see like what would work and what wouldn't. And it was like a really exciting kind of time, how that has kind of come full circle. I'm just kind of curious on like, you look at Copilot Plus and that is such a huge sort of initiative. If it were me, it would be really tough for me to kind of juggle, we've got this huge initiative coming out and not trying to prioritize or favorite Surface. Because obviously you've got to keep a lot of people happy, right? You've got to keep all of your OEM partners. You got to make sure that, Intel and AMD and Qualcomm, you got to pretty much make sure that everyone is sort of taken care of. So I'm just curious, like, do you find it difficult to make sure that you have that sort of fairness across the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you captured the complexity well. The way I think about it is Surface is part of our overall Windows strategy, meaning that we're using Surface, like we just talked about, to pioneer and set the best expression of what we've got. With Surface, we went all in on Copilot Plus PC. And so every single one of those devices is powered by Snapdragon ARM, and our OEM partners who do way more volume, but they don't make that bet, right? That's a riskier bet. We at Microsoft, we make that bet on behalf of the ecosystem. I think we found a nice kind of balance where our OEM partners, they're like, great, you're making bets. We bet on 2-in-1. We make some bets on devices that create categories which they can fill, and they do amazing jobs with devices that are more expensive, less expensive. So that's how it works.
Rewinding the clock a little bit on Copilot Plus, right? Obviously, that was an initiative that sort of, I'm sure, took quite a while to put together. How did that conversation come about? At what point did you sort of see Copilot and AI really kind of coming to the forefront?
Well, we knew it all along.
Oh, perfect. That's a great answer.
No, of course we didn't. There was a lot we didn't know, but we made a couple of bets. And then to your point, Austin, a couple of things happened that magically lit up. One of the things is, it's been, I would say the Copilot Plus PC bet was probably 3-4 years in the making. And then as that's coming along, we're re-architecting the entire Windows stack. We're doing a bunch of different software changes to make it work so great. And then, as you say, the AI starts to come to life. And we say, oh, wow, there's something there. And then we have to make a call. So what happens is you do a lot of research about like, well, what is the right battery amount? What is the right performance? And then it was a little bit of a lucky find, as you say, because the ChatGPT moment, it kicked this whole personal AI way off. And it worked out to us fortuitively that we now have this beautiful hybrid AI story that's very unique. On device and in the cloud. When you have AI locally, because of like a powerful NPU like we've got on these Copilot Plus PCs, and what's cool is not just that you saved a little bit of money, but as a creator, you don't have to now worry about, am I going to run out of like tokens? Am I going to run out of ink in my pen? And then to your point, privacy gets better. And that's a big thing because you're right. The biggest obstacle, I think, to having AI go mainstream is trust. And we care a lot about that. So we're trying to make that work.
It really just feels like unprecedented how fast everything is moving. The first sort of announcement of, of GPT and Bing was less than 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of a lot of these super useful tools, I know, and I especially see it in the comments a lot, I think people are maybe a little bit, I won't say tired, but a little bit overwhelmed with some of the clipification of, probably not a great way to phrase it, but there's a lot of things, right? Like if I'm in Edge, there's a lot of things that will kind of pop up and say, hey, do you want to do this or that? How do you kind of square the idea that you want to enable all these cool features and do all this kind of stuff without being too over the top, overwhelming, throwing too many things at people? Because I'm assuming there's going to be a certain point where someone goes I'm sure this is an amazing feature. If it keeps bugging me about it, I'm not even going to look at it.
Yeah, I think that is the art. So I would say for us, the design ethos that we want to take in all of our product making, start with simplicity, start with quality. And the way we talk about, the way our engineering talks about is really the craft. You've got to craft these products. And this is one of the things I think you were sort of touching on. In this phase of AI, now there's so many things, there's so much, hype and excitement. And so what you'll see in the new Copilot, we've made it much cleaner. We've taken out a lot of features. In fact, maybe we've taken out too many features. People want things back.
So actually speaking a little bit more broadly about Windows, it's been interesting because, I feel like if you look back across the day, it used to be the thing where people would line up to buy a copy of Windows 98. And, especially once we got to Vista and 7, things have kind of solidified a little bit. I mean, Windows updates have essentially been free since was Windows 8. I know that one of the things that people were maybe a little bit confused or concerned about was when Windows 11 came out and the TPM stuff and whatnot. Do you think that there would ever be a version of Windows that required an NPU because the AI was so built in?
Yeah, I think short term, nothing beyond obviously what we're working on now. So the Copilot plus PC, that is the bar. Back to your question, an NPU, Copilot, the TPM chip, and then obviously, suitable memory floors. I think that's kind of the key thing. We've gone through these eras, as you know. We went, first we went through a touch screen, then we went to modern, right? So it's thin and light SSD disks. And now we're doing what I think of as the Copilot plus PC.
Yeah.
It'll be 2 years or so, plus or minus, before the majority of all the volume all becomes Copilot plus PCs.
That's fast, really.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Hopefully,
maybe I'll knock on wood. But
interesting, because I think about it because again, we do a lot of weird PC builds and stuff. Windows 10 is great because I can run Windows 10 on a potato from 20 years ago, right?
That's
and
right.
Once you go up to 11, obviously there's a lot more sort of restrictions in place. Some of the people in the office, they have, relatively decent gaming PCs. They have no problem with it, but they're just below the cutoff to install Windows 11, which I know obviously you've got to make the line there, especially thinking back to when Windows 11 came out. I think Microsoft got a lot of flack. It's hey, my PC is only 3 years old or whatever. But by that same token, from my perspective at least, there are not a lot of companies I can think of that support a bajillion different hardware configurations. Maybe I shouldn't be able to run Windows 11 on my Pentium 4 from 2003, right? So I totally understand there's got to be some cutoffs at some point, right? You got to be able to make sure that you have a secure platform that actually works.
That is the tough thing. But what you said is true. That's been our goal with Windows. The most open platform, the most devices to choose from, the most apps to choose from. But we have to make this call on security in particular. And so the hardware floor and this TPM chip, if we didn't do that, the risks these days with all of the malware and cybersecurity things, we had to do it. And it's tough. Like you say, I feel bad when someone has bought something that's just under. And people should know we're working to see, if we can, get a few more machines in there, if we can get the software to work, we'll do it.
So coming back around to more of the device side. So the Surface portfolio has been really interesting to look at over, especially I would say the last 6 or 7 years. Maybe if you take off your Microsoft hat, just more of your fan of Surface hat, what are some of the devices that you kind of gravitate toward? Because I'm curious on what are some of the things that have been more favorite devices over the years, even if it's 5, 6, 7 years back?
First off, I'm a big 2-in-1.
Yeah.
So I'm the Surface Pro because the way I work, I want to scrunch up my knees and I can actually pivot that thing any number of ways. My second one is the Surface Studio. It's just big enough that I'm immersed in the content. And I have this problem sometimes where I get a hard time getting started.
Yeah.
But when I'm in there, there's nothing that gets in my field of view because the screen is so big.
Are there any of these areas that you think would be interesting to focus on in the future? For example, the Surface Studio is great. I love that product. But I'm assuming it's a very, very, very small market of someone who wants a big sort of all-in-one like that. So the laptops feel like the bread and butter. But I think about sort of the more unique devices like that. Are there any markets that you feel have maybe some potential, especially that maybe haven't been sort of fully AI-ified yet?
I do think that, these devices that eventually, that see the world, that you wear on your body, on your person.
Yeah.
I think that those combined with the AI will be very valuable. It can do image recognition.
Yeah.
It can tell you, it can talk to you about what's going on. I think that's a fascinating place that we'll go.
It could be really interesting to see the Surface take on non-computers, right? Like more like individual gadgets and stuff.
And I think that the other one that you're hitting on too is I think the phone to PC link, I think Apple devices do a nice job of that we don't. The ability to get your text messages to flow. We've done more and more work with our phone link software. Still not all the way there. Obviously, if Apple would allow us to do iMessage, it would be really cool. That'd be a nice move on their part.
That would be nice, especially if you could have that sort of the AI sort of handoff between like your phone and your computer, kind of having that all sort of like synced up. Can I give you some pitches on some things that obviously, I don't know if you got maybe cooking or not. You don't have to say anything, but if you wink, I'll know. Couple of categories of products that I think would be cool and or have been done in the past. I think something like Surface Duo. I think actually the last time I was in this extra space, it was for Surface Duo 2.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, was there anything interesting that you learned from that? Because from the outside, it seemed like I loved that hardware. It was so thin. It was
unbelievable.
So cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, so first off, I love the Surface Duo. Hardware design on that thing, the way the two screens work, that was some best in class. The hinge on it. And the biggest problem, of course, was the operating system and the apps. This goes back to what we were just talking about. If you can't get iMessage on there, you can't get some of the iOS things, then it makes it harder to do that.
I always appreciate trying something. I feel like that's something the Surface team does well, right? Like you might not have a 100% success rate, but no one does. I feel like the Surface team takes a lot of swings at some really fun stuff. I'm sure you got a copy of Windows Phone hanging around there somewhere. You can dust that off, right?
I think you're right. Like I'm glad you call that out because whether it's Surface and Copilot or Copilot proper, we are going to take some swings. We're going to be bold. We're going to try some things and we're going to get some things wrong. And I think we have to always remind ourselves we can't be afraid to try and fail because then you learn so much. Just like you're asking, hey, what'd you learn from Duo? Where we will get to next when we get this PC to mobile connection working, we'll be on the back of that learning. So you'll see us keep taking a few, bold, calculated bets where we'll try some big ideas.
I've got one more pitch for you.
All right.
A little bit of an outside one. When it comes to the hardware side, right, of Microsoft, I think about Surface and I think about Xbox. I always sometimes consider like, would there ever be like a crossover or a collab? You've got Xbox on Windows, you've got Game Pass, you've got cloud streaming and whatnot. I know obviously like some services have had like dedicated GPUs, you could do a little bit of gaming on it, but is there any kind of like room there or do you think it makes more sense to keep them as very sort of like separate kind of brands?
Yeah, these gaming PC rigs are amazing. You build many of them, right? But I think it would be amazing if we could get some of that peanut butter meets chocolate, some of that Xbox Game Pass with, the PC Game Pass. We talk with the Xbox team all the time and, at some point, maybe there's something there. If we had something going, I'd wink at you, but
I can confirm no winks.
No winks. But,
it's a tough market though, right? It feels like there's thousands of like, people who build, gaming PCs and, fulfill them. I mean, the other day I saw Costco do like custom gaming PCs. Yeah. I was like, it's crazy. I know that like the margins are incredibly thin. If you were trying to do something Surface, like such a difficult kind of game.
it's actually kind of a little bit of the converse. The gaming PC rigs, actually, the general ones, let's say, they're actually probably the most profitable of all the PCs. But to your point, there's a lot of people who are doing them and they do great jobs. Yeah. Like if you want a game on a device, you're going to buy a Windows computer, right? And we're happy about that. The approach we try and take with Surface is let's not just go recreate what other people have done. Yeah. Unless we have like a really cool, unique idea to advance the case where others are not doing something, then we don't like to enter those markets. We love that our third-party partners go build those things. Part of also, I think, Austin, what you haven't seen is they're doing a pretty good job. We're always on the hunt, and I think now with ABK and with Xbox really doubling down on Game Pass, I think we have all the assets to maybe do something special.
All right, last question for you. So many things have moved so fast over the last couple of years. Maybe for like the short, medium term, like what are some of the things that are really exciting you that are outside the AI space right now?
I'm a big fan of all these devices for our personal health. I'm a big user of like all of these things, the Oura Ring,
the rings, the
watch. I am really keenly interested in what those things can do to help us. We talked about these ideas of the wearable computing that can understand the world and help empower us more in those ways. I'm excited about those. I think there's a big opportunity there. They all kind of end up coming back to the world of AI in some ways, but I think that those are, I'm excited about what is possible there. Where the world can go when you empower everybody to be a creator and be the best version of themselves, that's probably what I'm most excited about.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Austin.
Sorry, Matt wasn't able to make it, but hopefully this was very encouraging. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring-a-ling-the-ding-a-ling button, which feels weird to say here, but I'm just going to say it anyway. And thank you very much for watching. I can't do the outro as good as Matt. I feel like Matt does it way better than I do.